Welcome back to the channel, everybody. How exciting to get this going. I'm really excited to start the process. So what we're going to do is we're going to follow the instructions, and I'm going to point out a few things here for you. So let's get the instructions on the board here. One of the big things I want you to know is that I found out that I am missing, and I missed this in the last video, but I am missing the decals on this set. So there are no decals that came with this, which is probably why it was opened. And, you know, that's okay. Well, if I can't find the decals for it, I'll just build it as is. If you know of any place that I can find the decals for this particular set, I would appreciate it. Let me know in the comments. That's something that I'd be very interested in. But regarding the instructions, I do want to point out that there is some very good advice in this little area here. So if you do have this kit, read this. This is advice that is basic on model building. For example, you know, it does tell you to use a good sharp model knife to trim and detach plastic parts. It tells you to test fit parts. It tells you if you're going to paint the model, in various sub-assemblies and components should be painted before parts are attached. Talks about bare plastic and painting, and bare plastic and cementing parts together using tweezers. There's some really good tips here. So if you have this kit, I definitely recommend this. I'm gonna just kind of have this, you know, in my pocket as a handy reference for myself as reminders. So as we go through this build, you'll see some of those techniques being used. Okay, enough of that. Let's start the process here. Oh yeah, so we're going to start with part one, maybe get to part two. So we're starting with part one here, and part one we're using, we're building the cockpit, and we're going to be cementing the lever, the throttle, the joystick, and the pilot stick to the cockpit floor. I'm not going to paint anything yet because I want the cement glue to work its magic and solidly cement this styrene plastic together. All right, so we have our cement, and we have a napkin there to kind of brush off the cement, wipe off the cement from the tip. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and try to use some extra thin cement from Tamiya. This is good stuff. It's like water, okay? And it has a little brush attached to the cap. And for the size of this, I think this will probably work better. I will be continuing to use my tester's cement for the other pieces, but some of these small pieces, I'm going to just go with this cement. All right, my friends. What I'm doing with this little piece here is I am attempting to make sure that it's smooth on the sides here. There was a piece of plastic. This is called the lever, and that's the way the instructions refer to it. And it's supposed to be on the floor, from what I can tell. It's supposed to be about right here in this hole, according to the picture, although this looks very small for this hole. So I'm going to see how this works, and then we'll move forward. It's a little loose on the fit for this hole here. Um, yeah, it's a little loose on that fit there for this hole, but it does fit. It doesn't go. It doesn't push through. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward with cementing this in. In fact, I think what I'm going to do. I hate this. Okay, what I'm doing here is I'm going to go ahead and put a drop of this cement here, since this part is so small, and I'm going to just kind of dip it into the cement, and then I'll put it in where it belongs. And let's just do this here. Yeah, all right. Hold it down there for a few seconds. I gotta make sure I'm holding this right. There we go. That's good. I can kind of reinforce it with a little drop of this here. All right, let's move on. Floor 17. Okay, now we got to get the throttle, which is number 17, onto the floor. And this is it right here. Sorry, this is it right there. Yeah. So that's 17, and that's the part. That part came right off. I don't see any flash. I don't see anything that I need to clear out on this one. So I'm just going to put it in as is. And from what I can tell, let's bring this back. If you look at the instructions, it faces to the right side, which is where the main pilot sits. So, pardon me, not the right side, the left side if you're facing this way. So port, not starboard. So port side is where that lever faces. So that's where I'm going to, or points. So that's where I'm going to place the lever. Port side, that way. So once again, let's get this going. And I just want to test fit it real quick. That's it right there. Not the best fit. The hole here at the bottom is definitely larger than the little peg at the bottom of this part here, which is a common complaint that a lot of folks who have built this model before had, is that the fitting between what you've got here and the actual piece, they just don't match up very well. But a little styrene glue here and cement glue will kind of help that out. So let's go ahead and continue here. Okay, so something about this glue that I'm just going to point out for those of you who may not know. The you definitely want to wait a few hours to dry this out. The glue itself, you hold it for 5-10 seconds, and it holds on. The plastic holds together, but if you tap it or move it a little bit, it's very flimsy right now because the glue hasn't completely cured or dried up. You really need to give that a couple of hours to dry. Now, I do have this accelerator that you can use if you want. It's called, well, let's get it here. Instaset accelerator that basically helps accelerate the drying of the glue, right? But I don't want to use it on this small little piece here. I want to kind of allow this to naturally dry out because this is so small. I mean, this is tiny. And so I'm just going to keep it as is, and we're going to move on to the third piece now. It's the joystick. That's part number 16. There's 2 of these. So let's take a look at the joystick. Carefully moving that out of the way. And there you go. This is part number 16 right here. Is your joystick. There's 2 of them. 1, 2. So we'll get those 2 on off the sprue. Now these are really thin. They're really delicate. So we've got to be careful with these. They're so delicate. I think I'm going to use the hobby knife, the X-Acto knife. There's 1. All I'm doing is pressing down, and it doesn't take much effort to get this off. There we go. Yeah, that didn't take much effort at all. So let me make sure there's nothing I need to. All right, so yeah, there's a little bit of flash here that needs to be shaved off on this one, and but a little bit up here. You see this? This one looks okay. I'm going to go ahead and try to cut this flash out with the hobby knife first. That's a quick fix. Yeah, that worked. Let's see. Yeah, there you go. Okay, that seems to have worked. Again, these are such small little pieces, and they're going to be on the inside of the cockpit that, you know, it's not a huge issue if you don't cut that out, but you know, that's kind of the way we hobby guys are, right? We want those details to be good and somewhat correct. All right. The curve of the joystick is outward because the front of the ship is going that way. So we want to make sure that that curve is out. So let's do a quick test fitting here. All right, let's do a quick test fit. Hold on a minute. All right. Yeah, that does fit. It's just not glued, so it's falling down. Notice how I'm holding these with my tweezers here. I'm trying to grab as close to the little pin here as I can, so that I can test fit these. Hold on tight, don't let them fall out. And let's go to this one here. Yeah, that definitely fits. This one on this side right here is easier to kind of manage because it's not next to that throttle that I just glued in. And I don't know if you noticed, but I touched the throttle, and as soon as I did, it moved slightly because, again, like I said earlier, the glue isn't exactly cured. So you definitely want to be careful with that throttle. But look at that. That's a great fit. It's just standing there. So let me go ahead and take care of this one first. And we'll go through the same procedure here. I'm going to use a drop of this. All right. Do not be deceived, my friends. Um, Although these pieces are on with this glue, they're not solid yet. The glue needs to cure. So I like the way it's looking though. It's coming along. This is very exciting. Very happy with this. Let's just continue. Next step is the pilot seat. And there's two of those. One of them actually came out. This is part number 7. So let's get the other one. All right. Yeah, there's part number 7. There's one missing here on this kit. It might have fallen out, so let me check my other little pieces. I'll be right back. Okay, indeed, the the actual seat was in the box. It had come apart. So I've got both of them now. We're going to put them down. Now, interestingly enough, there are no guidelines to where these seats go. So what I'm going to do before I put the seat in, I'm going to kind of fast forward and grab part number 6, which is the front wall panel, and kind of set it down in front of the area here where it belongs. Looks like it belongs right behind these lines, just to make sure that these seats fit correctly. So let me get number 6. That's this one right here. And put this right here. Just as a little test. Based on what I see in the instruction panel, yeah, this panel goes or fits behind these 2 guidelines right here on the floor of the cockpit. So I'm using those as the guideline, putting it down. All right. Will this interfere with any of the cockpit seats? It doesn't look like it. So, my friends, what I'm going to do here is I'm not going to follow the order of the booklet. I think I'm going to put this one down first, just to make sure that the fit is correct. pretty neat how this cement glue, it doesn't work instantly. It's still not cured completely, but it's made for styrene plastic. And, after 5 or 10 seconds, it just sets on its own. I really like that. Just brush a little of this on to the pieces here. Just want to make sure they stick. All right, so yeah, this is looking good. This is looking good. I'm going to leave it like that. Let it dry off. I really like the way this is looking. Let's go for the seats now. Now, what I'm doing here is, I'm feeling the bottom of the seat, and I can feel a little roughness here, like there's some extra plastic here at the bottom that I'm trying to shave off. I just want to make it as smooth as possible so that the glued fit is smooth. And just want to make sure there's no interference between the glue and the plastic with an extra little piece of plastic that doesn't let it set correctly here. All right, let's continue. I don't think it really matters. Both of these kind of look very, very similar. So I don't think it really matters which seat goes on which side. From my eye, both of these are very, very, very similar. So we're just going to go one at a time here. All I'm doing right now is kind of test fitting where this thing belongs. It tends to kind of just come right off. It doesn't want to stay in one spot. So I'm a little concerned about that. Looking at the picture, it seems to me that it belongs right there based on the fact that the seat is right behind the throttle there. So I'm going to assume that's about where it goes. Of course, you want to make sure that the seat isn't coming out over the edge here. And that is the concern right there. All right, let's go ahead and just dive right in, put the glue on this thing, and move forward. Boy, this glue melts the plastic together pretty quickly. It's not super glue, but you know, when there's no interference from paint between your glue and your plastic, uh, boy, it really works pretty good. Again, it's not completely dried up or cured, but that's a nice fit right there. I'm gonna wipe the glue from this side here so it won't bulk up. And let it continue to set. All right, let's go to the next side and hope it's as smooth as this one. Yeah, look at that. I like it. Okay, it's coming along here. We're moving right along. Let's just continue. So, just for reference here, we did complete this first step. Um, during this process, I did skip a little bit because I wanted some reference here. So I did this, but I skipped to this little piece here in part 2 just to make sure I had the alignment correct. And I went ahead and did that, but I'm going to come back to this area and continue to follow the instructions here. So this next part is to cement the instrument panel number 60 into the instrument console number 4. So that's what we're going to do next. And all the painting on this, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the cockpit together and then I'll paint the cockpit before we move on. All right. So here's number 4. I think 60 is probably on the other sprue or came off. I'll be right back. Yeah, 60 is on the other sprue. So sprue tree, it's right there. So let's get that going. And this is a really easy thing, but let's test fit it to make sure. All right. Yeah, it looks like it goes on pretty easy. The fit isn't the best, but you know, it's there. And it goes within the part there. So once you get some glue in there, it'll cement all these pieces together. So let's do that. I'm going to smooth this out right here. Now, one thing that I definitely want to make sure that I'm careful with is this little panel here. Not sure if you can tell, but it does have a lot of little raised uh, areas on it for all the little micro instruments, the instruments on the panel. I'm gonna, once I spray paint this black on the inside here, I'm gonna use a dry brush to kind of bring out the raised panels in silver, and maybe some yellow, maybe some red, and just kind of highlight some of the paneling there instead of using a decal on that, okay? So we'll see how that works when I get to that point, but let's go ahead and do the glue on this. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put these together, but I'm going to refrain from connecting everything until I paint these pieces, all right? All right, so that's done. Last part of this is going to be nose wheels. So let's work on that. We need 15, 14, and 35. So let's find 15 and 14. And look at this, they're really small pieces here. Yep. This is going to be interesting. All right, so the way this is supposed to go is this wheel is supposed to be loose and able to turn like it is right now. So there's a lot of flash on this wheel, so I'm gonna try to get that off first before I glue everything together. Let's see what we can do here. Yeah, there's a lot of flash on this wheel. So I'm using my hobby knife my X-Acto knife to kind of scrape the thin flash off the wheel here. Tedious work and delicate because it's such a small piece. It's such a small piece that you got to be very careful with your fingers. Okay, let's see here. All right. As I'm doing this, and I'm about to do this, I'm already starting to realize that, my friends, some painting is going to need to get done before we do this. So obviously, wheels, they need to be painted black. The tires, the wheels, before they're even put on this. If they're going to stay loose, if this wheel is going to be loose on this piece here, you definitely want to paint it and let it dry before you put it on this. Because, if you put this on, do everything right now, which we most definitely could. I mean, we could start putting everything together like this, but once you start needing to paint the gears and all this, the paint's going to get into this wheel and not allow it to turn. And the idea is to let it turn. So I think we're going to stop here, my friends. We're going to stop at this point. I'm going to start the painting process on this. And what you've seen is just the first part here, and that's the cockpit, and that's coming along very, very well, it looks like. This area, this piece is going to go into this area here. And it's just going to kind of sit there once it's finished, and it's going to be retractable, it sounds like. So that's kind of exciting there. So let me go ahead and start painting on this, and we'll continue and do this on the next round, the next video. We'll show you our progress. One thing I do want to point out that the instructions call for starting the back of the cockpit area. In fact, it calls for putting, let me just show you here. Yeah. It calls for cementing the passenger seats to the floor in the back of the assembly area. I'm going to skip this whole part here because on the original Airwolf, or on the Airwolf model, there are no passenger seats. This whole back area of the cockpit is a computer center and navigation controls and all kinds of stuff, as you recall from the TV series. So we don't need to do this unless we were going to do the Bell 222 model, which obviously has passenger seats. So we're going to skip part 3 here and move on to continue with the propellers and all that. But before we do that, and before we do this and this, I do need to start painting these pieces here, and then I'll add them onto the cockpit. So when we come back, all this should be hopefully painted, and then we'll move on to the rest of this. All right. Hey, thank you so much for your comments. Thank you for your help. Thank you for joining me today, my friends. I really, really do appreciate that. And we will continue this process next week. And thank you for joining. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share. And if you have any comments about the build, please let me know. And thanks again. Have a great week.